Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Tuesday Night Live. It's been a long time away, but we're back now, and I'll hand you over to Peter J. How you going, Pete?
G'day, Phoenix. Thanks very much for that intro, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Crowcast for another Tuesday Night Live edition. Great to have you all with us. Don't forget to get onto the Spreaker application there, and you can send us your messages and get us to chat about anything that you want us to and join in with the discussion. Although I have to say that tonight is a massive, massive show, probably the biggest one we've had all year. So if we don't get to them all, we apologise in advance. But we'll crack on. We've got news. We've got a terrific player interview coming up with none other than Rory Laird, one of the real fan favourites there of the crowd, of all the Crows fans. So very, very happy to have that. And we'll also have a look at the big game coming up on Saturday night against North Melbourne, and certainly all the trade news and stuff that's been going on as well. So without further ado, we will introduce the panel for tonight. Good evening, everybody. Nikki, Macca and Dan, how are we all going?
Good, thank you.
Very well.
Great to have you all along, and we will jump straight into Nikki's news.
Well, I actually think we should make Denos start off with the news, because he was the one who dropped a particular rumour that you tweeted, Peter, and it was 6 days ahead of Trade Radio.
Dan, absolutely magnificent work on being able to pull off the tip there that one Jaeger O'Meara failed a medical at North Melbourne. Brilliantly done, mate.
Anytime.
Well, now he's failed medical at North Melbourne. What was it, St Kilda, and who else was it, Peter?
I think it's also Carlton that have said that they're not interested now because of the medical situation.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's what I suspected might actually happen, because I'd heard quite all along that even up at Gold Coast they were very worried about his knees, and it's coming to fruition. So is he going to have to go back to Gold Coast and go, I might stay because nobody wants me?
Dan, without revealing your sources there, any other information you've got on this particular story?
No. only that something weird's going on. Hang on.
All right, we'll leave that one there. Nikki?
No, was there anything else you had, Dan, or...?
No, only that some people that know the Kangaroos very well that I know told me that O'Meara was not very good. So that was it.
Well, that's some pretty decent little bit of news. The other kind of biggish thing that came out a little bit was this supposed toppling of the board at Richmond, and they had a little press conference, and they were just a bunch of wallies, really. I think they might end up making Cockwombling number of the week nominations, because they were telling people to butt out, and if you don't know about this, you shouldn't. What was it? An accounting firm shouldn't be telling a football club how to run it. Well, the guy who's leading it's a cardiologist, and he wants to have a say in a game plan. Well, mate, you're not a coach, so butt out.
Maybe he wants them to have a little bit of heart, Nikki.
Oh, they've been lacking that for a while.
What I enjoyed about that whole thing was this issue that they've got this focus on football committee planned. And essentially the plan is that the committee are going to come up with a game plan, and the coach is merely going to be implementing their game plan. I don't think a football club has ever operated that way, and I don't think a football club will ever operate that way. And what sort of coach would want to buy into that?
Oh, it's pretty rubbish.
It was just laughable. It was like it was a Monty Python sketch almost. Was the way I took out of it. But in other good news, congratulations to Rory Sloane on being vice captain of the All-Australian team, and to Talia and to Eddie for also making the team. Commiserations to Jenkins, Lynch and Lairdy. I think there were two there definitely with a bit stiff. James Brayshaw can bugger off about Tarrant, because he got his ass kicked by lowly team, so he doesn't even deserve to be in the conversation, I'm sorry, regarding a defender in the All-Australian team. And I loved Rory Sloane's face when he was actually named captain, vice captain. It was an absolute shock to him, but he just looked so chuffed. And I also would really like to know if Mitch McGovern knows how to put on a jacket, because his brother really doesn't.
Well, not bad for Sloanley
moment.
Sloanley getting VC on his first attempt's not a bad achievement.
And so good that Danger was there and Sloan still got it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, they didn't go with the two. And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the only one on the panel who actually seemed to have a brain and could answer the questions was Treadray. And I got the impression that it was he and Richardson who really, really wanted Jenkins in the team. So the two key forwards who know how to play that have seen the value of Jenkins, thought he absolutely deserved to be in the team, and they were outvoted by everybody else who wasn't a forward. And what else are the awards? Callum Mills is being named tonight, now, whatever, was it this afternoon? The Rising Star, I think that was something that pretty much everybody kind of thought was going to happen.
Yeah, not much of a surprise there.
He's an incredible talent, that lad. He's really got to go a long way. He's actually an on-baller. He's had to learn how to play half-back. And by the end of the year, he was a quality half-back. He's going to be a very, very good player.
Yeah, he's very much a well-deserved one. I know Carlton supporters thought that Wittering might have got it at the start of the year, but like most tall players, he tended to fade a little bit towards the end of the year. But he's another one who's going to do quite well, I can see, in the future. And really, the only other big major thing is the stupidity of Ticketek and the Gil McLaughlin, who thinks that the buy is a good idea. Everybody that he's talked to is a good idea. It's like, I'm sorry, Gil, talking to yourself in the mirror doesn't really count. So I think he might end up with a nomination as well.
It was interesting. I heard a snippet on SEN this afternoon. No, maybe this morning. They have a guy talking about the NFL, and he was talking to Bartlett, and they were briefly talking about the AFL, and he said McLaughlin buys into a lot of the NFL strategies, and one of the NFL strategies is to stretch the season as far as possible. And he gave the example that the Super Bowl used to be held in, early to mid-January, and now it's held, mid to late February. And he pointed out that that's exactly what McLaughlin's doing with these buys and all the rest of it. And, it's quite a cynical approach, really, because it does, again, add another level of inequity to the draw, doesn't it?
Well and truly. I mean, we do ask Rory coming up in the interview a little bit about what the players' view of it is. But I know from a fan's point of view, we're all kind of a bit, is there football on? Oh, there's the SNFL and there's the women's game, which incidentally did rate the best Saturday night ratings they've had all season on Channel 7. Once again.
The second best, sorry, I was going to say the second best ever.
I think the worst thing about the buy, and I'm just going to fold this in with some Adelaide news as well. The worst thing about the buy is it has opened the doors for all of the normal post-season reporting, and what we've got is a complete loss of focus on the finals, and what we've got is just a runaway avalanche of trade and list management news, and that is what's going to dominate headlines from now on, I think, and I'm not sure that we can actually reverse that. We might actually get into some football at some stage, but at the moment it just seems like it's irreversible, and Adelaide is now right in the middle of it. And I speak, of course, of the news that this morning of Jared Lyons. And during the course of the afternoon, I was given some information which I would say is from a very, very reliable source who's close to the situation. And I was given the figures that he was offered in his contract and also what he's being offered by 2 or 3 other clubs. And I have to say that I almost fell over. It was the offer, if that is correct, the offer that's been given to him is just the most extraordinarily low offer that you can imagine to an AFL player. I would have thought it'd be, commensurate for maybe a first or second year player. So it seems to me, and I think this dovetails into what's probably going to be a continuing story of Adelaide chasing Tom Rockcliffe and how we're going to position ourselves to be able to make that trade work, because I think that's where it's all headed. There's absolutely no way that Adelaide would expect Jared Lyons to be staying on the contract that's been offered. And that's going to make life very, very difficult for him. He has no interest in leaving Adelaide. So that will, because his partner is entrenched in Adelaide, and he's either going to have to go across the road, perish the thought, or he'll take up one of those offers interstate and have to commute to make the relationship continue to work. That's if we can't come to some kind of resolution. But at the moment, they're a long way apart.
So we're talking. We're not talking David McKay levels of salary. Then obviously we're talking lower than that.
David McKay levels of salary is what he's being offered by other clubs.
Yeah.
But for me, if you actually listen to what's happened this year, particularly now that we've got Reid in charge, this is what he does. He does a very low ball offer first off. And I think it's so that he can actually find out what the other clubs are offering, because then the player's manager comes back and says, this is what we've been offered. And then they start working back and forth to come into line. It's come out every single time that we've made a low offer on Lynch, on Jenkins, on those type of players, and then it's worked out quite happy in the end. I think this is just the way that the club's kind of operating at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more than that, though, Nikki. And I think you're right in what you said as far as you've gone. But taking up the line that Peter was talking about, and I'm in the same vein of thought as Peter, if you look at the situation of our midfield, we've got two players in Lyons and also Cam who haven't been offered contracts yet. Neither has Greg, who's another depth layer down below that again. So at the moment, it would seem that they're counting on bringing someone in and therefore not knowing who they want to keep out of those guys. And I think the low offers are deliberate, so they won't be accepted, so that you can keep the negotiations just running on a little bit longer while we're trying to wind up what we're trying to do. That's how it seems to me.
And just further to that, Macca, just a bit of self-publication, but I wrote an article for Crows Fan Central, which was put out today, and I can just see how that's going to work, because I think that Brisbane, the other information that came to light through the week was the fact that Rockcliffe's on the last year of a long contract back-ended, and so it stands to make in the region of $700,000 to $800,000 next year. And I reckon Brisbane will want that off their books as they try and clean the place up. I think they'll be happy for Rockcliffe to go. And I think that Rockcliffe has been quite strategic, his management has been quite strategic in saying, I'm happy to stay. And in other words, he's giving a message to Brisbane, well, I want the dough. And you're going to have to sort out somehow that I'm going to get paid. So I think from Adelaide's point of view, I think that I reckon we're in it up to our eyeballs. I reckon we want him now. I don't think we want to wait for free agency. I think Brisbane have motivation for him to go because also if they can get a little bit more from him now than they would as a free agent at the end of next year, I think it suits their agenda also in terms of cleaning out the leadership. So I think that that's all starting to align, and I think that we just need to find out what we need to satisfy trade.
Well, all of our actions actually support what you're saying. All of our actions do that. And if it's not Rockcliffe, it has to be somebody else, but I can't think of anybody else that it could be. So to me, it has to be Rockcliffe.
There's a lot of people on chat, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people on various social media platforms and whatnot that are suggesting that, Lyons has been treated badly and all the rest of it. I honestly think this is a case of you've got to actually understand now that we're in a commercial business, and people are forever whinging about the fact that we can't get big-time players and all the rest of it into the system. And unfortunately, this is list management reality, and a bloke like Jared Lyons is a dime a dozen. And yes, he's a good player. Yes, he's a good lad. Yes, he's shown lots of loyalty. but we've all been lamenting our midfield all season. We've all got the same view that we've got a bunch of one-pace players that are very similar. Jared is amongst those. And when you talk about who's the guy that we want to offload that's actually got some market value, well, he's the first one that springs to mind. He's got far more market value than Cameron Ellis-Yeoman, simply because Ellis-Yeoman's only played 2 games this year. Lyons is the guy, and we can't afford to be too sentimental about these players, because if we want to develop a winning midfield to go along with our winning forward line and our developing defence, then we've got to be prepared to make these hard calls.
And I think
sorry, Mac, I was going to say, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that Lyons, he's the perfect at the moment sell high, because he's had an out of the box season, and you can certainly throw some stats in front of an opposing recruiter and say that he's been a first 22 player and he's had a really, really good season. I just think there's probably ways to go about it, and the kind of money that's being talked about, he could probably make playing for Horsham, and so I just think that there's probably a way to go about it, and that's to sort of say, look, we want you to. For whatever reason, be part of a trade, but to just lowball like that, I just think it's a little bit ugly. But maybe that's just the reality. I don't disagree with the strategy in terms of the trade, but probably I don't know. Maybe I just don't know the business well enough. But it just seems to me to be a pretty crappy way to go about it.
Well, unfortunately, that's the way footy is at the moment. It's a business, and if you would operate with sentimentality, you'd have a real cocked up side, unfortunately. And these days, you just have to plan what you need, plan what you want to get, and you have to go about it and get it whatever way you can do that. And I think Phoenix is right in what he's saying. And also, Rockcliffe would suit us down to the ground with Tomo being on his last legs, and then looking for pace. Having watched the Crows young boys on last weekend, Harry Wigg, Millerer, Greenwood, there's a lot of young lads with a lot of quick legs coming through, so I think that's where the speed will come from.
And also in other news, we did get a player coming into the club, which is actually Jed Anderson's sister, Jasmine, as one of the rookie pickups, because she's been playing soccer for the past 3 years instead of Aussie rules.
Yeah, that was great news. And as you alluded to before, Nikki, it was a tremendously successful appearance of the women's football on Saturday night. Great with the ratings, and good to see that. I reckon there was a couple of players playing in that game that we have signed up as our marquee players. Yep. And good to see another signing that we did today.
And they're all very hard at it, which I was quite pleased to actually watch them play. So we've definitely got some that really like hunting the ball and go in for it.
Yeah, no, that was terrific. All right, any other news anybody wants to jump in there with?
Last question, what do you guys think about, I know I've got a very clear opinion on it, but Hartlett, any possibility of Adelaide being interested?
For a very low price, maybe.
I would certainly hope not, Mako. There's just nothing there. For me, he's 26 years old. His best finish in a BNF is 8th in all of his years. He's won 1 showdown medal when we just weren't running that well. And for me, no way in the world I would be giving up what they'll be asking.
No, look, I 100% agree. I just was curious what everybody else thought about it. If you look at his career, he's missed about a third of the games through injury, and of the other games that he plays, he only probably plays one good one, one bad one. So you've really got a player that you're going to get a good game out of him every 3 games. So why would you be interested in him?
Yeah, definitely not on that.
No, absolutely not. All right, we'll wrap up the news there. And Phoenix, we were very, very spoiled with the opportunity last week. It was to be able to record an interview with one of the real favourites of the Crows fans, the diminutive defender Rory Laird.
It is down behind play for this incident, is it, Tim? That's the incident there. Heaves it outside. Laird, what a fine player he is. Try and get reorganised on the wing. They're full of adrenaline at the moment. Sheridan's kick not perfect, and Laird's such a confident player at the moment. Just dismissed Ballantyne. Laird, the has to be written into the All-Australian team.
And as we mentioned at the top of the show this evening, the Crowcast is extremely lucky to have a very, very special guest tonight. I'd say probably one of the most popular Crows players with most of the fans. I speak of none other than Rory Laird. Rory, good evening. How are you going?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm going well, just on the way home from training at the moment. So, going well. Thanks for having me on.
Look, Rory, it's been a brilliant year for you. The 22 under-22 squad, also the All-Australian squad and the Coaches Association All-Australian side. You must be incredibly happy with your season.
Yeah, well, on a personal level, it's been a pretty consistent year for me, minus the injuries that I sustained, unfortunately. So I missed a bit of footy, but more importantly as well, it's just been a really enjoyable year in terms of our team success. 16-6 is a good win-loss to have, and we head into the finals with a lot of confidence. So the most important part of the year starts now, and we're really looking forward to it.
And Rory, just as we head towards the finals, just curious as to your take on the bye and how that affects you guys, and what your program will be, I guess, as we lead into the finals next week.
Yeah, I don't mind the bye, and I think it's it's got its pros and its cons. I think at the moment we had a few sore boys from the weekend, so we get to rest up a little bit, get a bit of training into us, and just get over a few niggles. But at the same time, it was obviously a very disappointing result for us last week, and we wanted to obviously play this week and avenge sort of what happened last week, but we have to wait till next Saturday. So it works both ways, but I like it. I think I was a bit sore out of the game, so it helps me refresh and get a bit of training into me. So I don't mind it.
Do you have a sense there that the media has very much got on board with the teams outside of the 8 this week, and so the narrative of the AFL really at the moment is all about trades and delistings and things like that, and it's almost as though the focus has gone off of the finals this week. Do you have a sense of that inside the club, and does that have any effect on you at all?
No, we try and block out all the external talk. Obviously, the media is a big part of the AFL at the moment, and they have what they talk about. So where other clubs are sort of talking about the listings and the changes around their clubs, we're in a really fortunate position that we get to concentrate on playing an elimination final next week. So our process and our schedule is all based around getting ready for that, and getting ready to go as best we can for next week.
Now, just on a little bit of fun in a way, because you were missing a particular, well, we can't really call you the three amigos, but the three Rorys weren't together on Friday night. Now, we've noticed that you guys get together and sing the song, and even so much to the point that you make sure that you walk down the race together so that you're going to be together. When did that actually start, of the three of you?
It's kind of a funny little thing we've got going now. So Rory Atkins played a couple of games last year, but it didn't really happen. But obviously he's come into the team and played a really significant role for us and playing really well. So I think it was Floney that grabbed us after a game and said, let's get all the Rorys together in the circle and start singing. And then from there we kept winning games and sort of stuck. So there's not too many teams out there that can say they have one Rory on the team, let alone three. So we get along really well together, and it's just a little rich to do now, so it makes it a bit more enjoyable in the circle.
Now, I think all of you need to get onto the two other Rorys that are in the AFL to make sure they come and join us so we can have all the Rorys, because Rory Lobb and Rory Thompson might be quite nice to have on the team.
Oh, I know, they're very quality players. I wouldn't mind getting them over here, but at the moment I think three Rorys is plenty. There's not too many going around, so it's good. It's good.
And the one other thing that interested me was from earlier in the year, just before the Super Bowl, there was a photograph of you coming into the club with a Denver Broncos T-shirt on. Now, are you actually a Broncos fan, or were they the team you picked for the Super Bowl?
That's very good vision by you there, picking that up. I'm a big NFL fan, and obviously Tommy Lynch and Josh Jenkins are massive fans, and we get into it pretty heavily at the club. So I'm not actually a Denver fan. I'll go for Atlanta, along with Charlie Cameron. Him and I like to watch the games together. So, but there's a lot of blokes that like watching it, and it's always a hot topic around the change room. So it's a bit of fun, and I love the sport. We got to go to America last year. Brody and Tales and I. So saw a couple of games over there, which was unreal.
I'm a little disappointed in that because I am a huge Denver Broncos fan, have been for a very long time. So I was like, damn it! Oh,
wow.
You've upset me, Rory.
You'd be happy then with last year's result?
Well, interestingly, the last time Denver won Super Bowls, the Crows won premierships. So you guys, there's a nice little bit of fate going on there.
Good omen to have there, I reckon.
The only problem is Pat Rafter also won the US Open. So I don't think he's quite having a comeback.
No, I don't think that's going to happen just quietly.
Now, mate, just going back over your career a little bit, you're an old Scotch boy, aren't you? And you came through the Westies system onto the Crows rookie list. Just briefly, can you give us an insight into the process there in terms of coming on as a rookie? Was it a bit of a letdown not getting taken through the regular draft, and was the process of coming on board with the Crows any different than, say, a normal drafted player would have been?
So obviously I was lucky enough to play most of my juniors at West Adelaide through their youth development system, and that really put me in good stead. And also was lucky enough to be coached by Gavin Wanganeen and Matthew Nix at Scotch. So they've gone on, Gav was an unbelievable player, and so was Nixie, and Nixie's gone into an assistant coaching role now. So it started with those as the foundation. Then I was lucky enough to get picked up in the rookie draft by Adelaide, and I don't think it takes too much of a hit on you. I did obviously want to be nationally drafted. You get the security of 2 years in the AFL system, but answered another question today. As a rookie player, you get 1 year, but you're still exposed to the same coaches, the same players to learn off. You're in the same environment. It's just a matter of being able to take your opportunity and playing well and doing what the coaches ask of you and seeing development in your game. So lucky enough they saw enough development in me and kept me around, and now I'm lucky enough to be playing AFL every week. So it was as I said, it was a bit disappointing with the national draft, but as long as I get to stay in the environment, then I'm happy, and I'm very grateful that the Adelaide Football Club gave me an opportunity.
And we've got a pretty good record with rookie selections, obviously yourself and Benny Rutten and a few others. Do you guys that did come through that section of the draft give the new blokes, the new rookies, a bit of support and a bit of guidance in that regard and how to get through?
Yeah, I think it works like that in terms of you offer rookie drafts, you sort of say we're in the same position, etc. This is what I did, and it's also if you get a player that comes in at sort of the same position that they play as you, so you can sort of help them in terms of what you've learned in your time there, what kind of worked for me, what did I do specifically, see if it works for you, kind of thing. So we will try and help each other as much as possible.
Just taking up the fact that you were an old Scotch scholar, Rory, do you get much chance to get back there and do any work with the kids back there at all, or is that not something that fits with your routine?
I've been out there a couple of times for the first 18. I've had to chat to them a couple of times before inter-school games. I've had a bit to do with the old collegians. I went to an event there recently and spoke as I interviewed in front of a group of people there for a dinner. And I've got a lot of mates that still play at old collegians, so I like to go back there and watch them play. And in my a bar here and there, I might get to sneak in a cheeky beer with them too. So it's always good to go back there. And I played a lot of footy on that oval, so it's always nice to go and see them. And they come and watch me, so I don't mind going back out there and watching them. It's good fun.
Yeah, I played a bit of footy that oval too. They bloody fix those away showers, because they'd be the worst in amateur league, I reckon, those away showers.
Oh, mate, the actual home change rooms aren't that great either. They're about the size of a shoebox, so I wouldn't mind a bit of a makeover there for the boys. I reckon they'd probably like that.
You probably can't get too close from down there, because before you know where you are, you'll be roped in for a game.
Yeah, I would love to go back out there and play at some point, but hopefully I've got a few more years left at AFL level, and but I always say to them, I'd love to come out and have a kick with you. It'd be good fun. It's a lot more relaxed down there, but and saying that I'm not complaining at all with my job. So, maybe one day I'll get to go back there and have a kick with them.
Well, it's great to hear that because, when some of the old scholars do go through and make success of themselves, as you have done, it's a great source of inspiration for the kids back there, I'm sure.
Yeah, as I said, I love sort of going back there. I spent year 8 to year 12 there and played a lot of games there, and I sort of keep in touch with a lot of them boys too that are still playing. So happy to go back there and have a chat to the boys if they need to, or just go and watch my mates. Really, that's what I enjoy most. So as I said, they come and watch me, so I like going out there and watching them on a Saturday afternoon if I get the opportunity.
Now, we had Jake Lever on a month or two ago, and then we've had Kyle Cheney, and there's been a bit of discussion from you guys, or from them, regarding kicking for goal. And Jake was a bit disappointed because he felt there was a little bit of, both the Kyles were stopping him scoring a goal because neither of them had for a while. Is there a little competition amongst the backline players about scoring goals?
Well, there is times at training where we do have set shots, and sometimes they're very good in terms of all of us kicking them, and then sometimes we just look like backmen genuinely and do not kick them straight at all. So, but when Kyle Hardigan lined up to go, he put it straight through the middle, and then and Jakey Lever's goal was unbelievable for his first goal. Unfortunately, I don't kick too many. It's more Brodie Smith and Licky Brown's kicked a fair few this year. So, we do have a bit of a competition. I think we just sort of get a lot of enjoyment about back 6 or 7 when we do actually get down there and kick a goal. So there's usually a few celebrations and a few watches of the replay during the week too, I reckon.
Especially Lever.
Yeah, especially Jake.
I reckon he films it on his phone. I reckon just takes it over and watches it.
Well, yeah, Brownie has 5, but your goal was actually my highlight of the season because the lead up to that goal was you had Matt passing to Rory, to Rory, to Rory, to Mitch, to Rory, you, and goal. And yet none of the commentators picked up it went through the 3 Rorys. Yeah,
it's funny you say that actually because Rory Sloan came up to us, me and Rory, really early in the season and said, at some point we've got to get a Rory to Rory to Rory passage. And then he's like, after the Port game, he said, what happened today? That actually, it actually happened. So, and in the end, it turned out to be a goal, which is always nice, and especially nice when I kick him. So, funny to point that out. But there's been a couple of times where it's gone Rory to Rory to Rory, and I dare say that hasn't happened too many times in an AFL game.
But just going back about your backlines and your little team, because you've had a bit of changeover from last year to this year, and now you've got Pods actually coaching you guys. Is there any little differences? Because from him coming in, I mean, some things have been said before about him being a forward, and so there is a bit of that. But the adjustment that you guys have had to do, is there a lot between what was last year and this year, or is it just a little bit of a tweak?
I think it was just a little bit of a tweak. I think the foundations were sort of set last year in how we wanted to play, but Pods has been unbelievable for us this year. He's given us a lot of confidence in how we want to play, and he's been really clear with his explanation on what he wants from us as back 6 or 7. So I think it's worked really well as well. I think the more games we play together, the more you get used to each other and you work out how each other works and the strengths and the weaknesses and where to go and when. So I think that's also been a big part of it. And Pods has been great. He was a forward and he was a great forward, but he's come and slotted down into the backline coach role really well.
Now, mate, just on that, how many times do you reckon Lever's taken you out in a pack during the season so far? Is that part of the message or is that a bit off message?
No, it's never ever a message, but it seems to always be me. He collects someone about 3 or 4 times a year, and 3 or 4 times it's me every single time. I don't know how it happens, but it just does. And it's I tell him, I look straight at him, and he just knows now. So I'll try and say he's full on. He's a very courageous young player.
Now, mate, all funny stuff aside, we got some serious stuff coming up, and obviously we made an executive decision here beforehand that we weren't going to talk about last Friday night. But I'd imagine that coming off that game and leading into the finals, training this week has been focused on just shoring up some key areas of game plan more than changing anything at this late stage.
Yeah, you hit it on the head, mate. There's no reason to sort of change from what we've been doing this year. We're 16-6 for a reason on the season, and I think what we've displayed throughout the year is a brand of football that matches with the best sides in the competition. So obviously last Friday night was disappointing in terms of what our output was, but it was an off night, and it doesn't display, what we've done all season, and we're not taking anything away from that. So we've reviewed the game, and some key areas we're going to try and improve on and hone in for the next week when we come up against North Melbourne.
And obviously, I'm not going to ask you to divulge anything because we've got all the AFL scouts listening to this program. But is it a case of you sit down at the review and you look at it and you go, oh, hell, I didn't realise I was doing that, or, do things become obvious in review, and are they things that you go, shit, we should have, why were we doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that has been the case at times. You see things that you sort of think you're not really thinking about during the game, and then the coaches obviously go through it very thoroughly, and that's what the review process is all about, and that's what we've been sort of looking at in terms of what to do to get better, and what we're sort of honing in on for the next week.
Now, Roy, we understand that you've just come from training. I know it's been probably a hell of a day for you, so we appreciate your time. We won't hold you for too much longer. But one thing we do like to do is just have a chat to the guests that we interview from the Crows, and just ask them this particular question. That is, if there was one player that you really wouldn't want to get stuck in the overnight sleepover at the club with, who would that be?
Oh, God, there's a few. Probably Tex. I don't know. He's always pranking people and doing stuff. I think you'd have to be on your toes the whole time. I don't reckon I'd get too much sleep because I'd be scared he'd probably do something or set me up to do something. So I reckon he's probably the worst one.
Now, we did have one other question that we've asked. Originally it started was who was the best sledger on the training track, and after the first couple we figured out it was Tex. So we were interested in what was the best sledge you've heard him give towards one of his teammates?
Oh, wow. What does he do? He's sort of, if he gets on top of you or, takes a couple of marks, kicks a couple of goals, he sort of says, he's up and about and thinks that no one can kind of stop him or anything like that. So I think it's more, a bit of a joke and a banter here and there, just in terms of, if he's getting on top or the forwards are getting on top of the backman, it's a bit of a rivalry there. So I think it's all a bit of a joke and fun. But, he can stir you off a fair bit. He's got a fair mouth on him, the young lad.
Now, mate, just a final question. Coming into, obviously, next week in a pretty important period for the club. And again, not asking you to divulge everything, but I gather that Brodie's tracking well and Seeds as well with his sore backside.
Yeah, I think we had training tonight and they were both out there and moving well. That sort of take the cautious approach with Brodie. He's had a couple in his time now, so. And I think Cito's back to running and sort of moving well too. So, I think the break sort of come at a good time for those two as well to get back to, 100% and moving well and getting back into the swing of things. So, I think they'll both be right.
I just had one other one too. How is it this year at the club? It's probably the first time we've had the twos in the finals as well. Does that give it a bit of a lift around the place?
Yeah, it's obviously really exciting for the SANFL team as well. We've first year in finals and a lot of those young boys will play in their first final and, a lot of them haven't played SANFL that often and that much, but credit to them for, making it to the finals. They played some really good footy this year and it's just great to see that both teams are, preparing to play in the final because that's what you play footy for. So it's, really exciting times around the club.
Yeah.
Well, Rory, the hour is late, and we know that you've had a huge day, so we'll wrap that up. And can we just say we really appreciate your time. It's fantastic you take the time out to have a chat to us, and we understand you'll now put the feet up and have a little bit of a break and prepare yourself for what is a massive match next Saturday night. And we wish you all the best for that. We congratulate you on a fantastic season personally, and all the very, very best for the rest of the final series.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the words of encouragement, and happy to come on here. You guys are awesome, and thanks for your questions anytime.
Thanks, Rory. Appreciate it.
We might hold you to that now.
No, anytime. Thank you.
Well, hang on. Here's a question. You on a plane to Melbourne tomorrow?
No, I'll find out tomorrow, I think. So, I think hopefully all 6 of us are there. But, credit to those boys that have had unbelievable years.
Good on you, mate.
We hope you are.
Good on you, Rory. Thanks very much.
See you guys.
And that was the very, very popular Rory Laird. And, it was great to have a chat with him. Terrific bloke. And as always, it was good to get a few insights into what's going on around the club. I guess you all enjoyed that?
Well, personally, that's the first I'd heard it because I wasn't available at the time when you did it, and I reckon it was bloody excellent. Well done, guys.
I'm just pleased he said we were awesome.
Oh dear, no,
real,
it was
real quality bloke. Sorry, I was going to say real quality bloke, and it's such a shame. And we'll talk about this on Cockwomble, I'm sure, but for him to miss All Australian, I'd purposely put in a little sound bite at the beginning that Hudson basically calling it at about whatever that was. That was the West Coast game, about round 12, that he had to be penned into the All-Australian team. And for him not to have made it, I'll tell you what, a bit of an injustice, I think.
Totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, just moving along. And perhaps we might just take up, as we got to the end of the Rory Laird interview, Phoenix, you mentioned about the SNFL side being in the finals, and just wondered what your thoughts were. Did everybody watch the game last Sunday?
Yeah,
or Saturday, sorry.
Well, I certainly did. No, I loved it. It was the thing that really struck me about the game is the fact that the style of football that they played is exactly the same style of football that the big boys play, and I can see that the real advantage of having this side where all of our players who aren't in the A's, who are playing all together and playing the same style, because when their turn comes to go up to league level or the AFL level, they'll be able to play their role and play it as they should. And on top of that, there were some terrific individual displays by some of the lads. And for me, all I could see that there was future. I could see about 6 or 7 lads out there that will be just bursting to get in our team next year. And I think we're going to have a very good team next year, thanks to that.
I was there. That wind was absolutely freezing. It was very interesting, the difference, actually. You just said then, Macca, you could see it was the AFL game plan. Well, last week, the SNFL side, like the AFL side against South, they played very differently this week than what we've seen. Dad and I have kind of commented that we haven't really won the midfield at all this season in the SNFL, and there was a change made in how we set up a little bit. We absolutely choked Centrals. We put them under so much pressure and didn't allow them to run, because if you remember last week I said I was a bit worried about Centrals because they're one of those fast teams, and that's who worry us in the SANFL. And we didn't allow them to do that, which was really pleasing to see.
What I'm really liking about the SNFL side at the moment, not just for the finals but in the last few games as well, is that I think that we are, it's taken probably the season, but I think that we are now starting to see some cream really rising to the top. Speaking, of course, of the likes of Troy Menzel, who I thought was brilliant on Saturday, and he looks really primed to have a great pre-season and hit the ground running next year. Harry Wigg, I thought was terrific, and he's continued his form from a great season that he's had. Wayne Miller was absolutely brilliant. So, these really, really talented kids, almost if you want to refer to them as our Gen Next, although, Menzel's been around for a little while, but there really is, sorry, Riley Knight was the other one I was going to throw in there as well.
Yeah.
There really is there's an identifiable group of young men who look ready to really put pressure on for spots next year.
Yeah, and you missed Kirtley Hampton there. He just was absolute sheer class every time he went near the ball.
Yeah, he's silkmaker, isn't he? And not only is it good for next year, but if we do happen to get hit with a couple of injuries, you feel like there's one or two players, particularly in the midfield and up forward, that can slide in. You got Menz up forward, and Riley Knight certainly looks like he's overcome his problems, and we got Cam Ellis-Yolman, obviously, and at a pinch we could debut Harry Wigg, but we're not. Obviously, we don't want injuries, but we've got players there if needed.
Now, what did you guys think of Greenwood?
I loved him.
He was another one. He was another one, Nicky, that was brilliant.
He astonished me. I mean, he is just a real goer, and on top of that, he's got a lot of pace as well. I thought he was quite outstanding, actually.
And he's got a leap.
The chattering that's going on the messages at the moment on the Spreaker site really revolve around some of the controversy that has been brought to bear after that game, and all of the whinging.
Oh, it was during the game if you were there.
And it really has been really quite immature and a bit pathetic. And
we've even had Cornsey come out.
Incredibly disappointing. I mean, what was that all about, really?
But even Cornsey's now come out and said, the same sort of thing, that if the Crows win, that the SANFL is dead. I mean, how bloody ridiculous. We're playing a team that is half full of ring-ins from outside the SANFL system. They're crying about Ellis Yeoman playing. Well, he played 16 games, and it would have been just Central's luck that he missed out. We didn't play players of AFL standard that were available, like Sloan and whatnot. But it's a storm in a teacup, and I really don't understand. People are just being opportunistic, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, as far as Cam goes, I mean, he is an SAFL player who played a couple of games at AFL level, but he's the favourite for the McGarry medal, and he's a dead set SAFL player, and he spent the whole year down there, bar those couple of games, and for Centrals to carry on like they did, they got the kick of the guts they deserved, quite frankly.
Well, there was certainly, if there was going to be a cock-wombling numbnut of the week award this week, there was never ever going to be any competition as to who it was going to go to, because Roy, and let's not make the mistake of saying Rory, but Roy Laird was just pathetic.
Yeah, it was pathetic.
It really was, and I just would have been, if I was a Central supporter, and actually I heard a few of them ring up the radio, and they were embarrassed. It was just flying the white flag before they even, turned up, and really it set the tone, I think, for Centrals. It was almost as though, he conceded that they were going to lose before the game was even played.
Well,
so
it's a really good point
poor effort.
Really good point that you raised, Pete, because they came out looking defeated. I mean, we smacked them, particularly in the second quarter. And if I was a club official down at Centrals, I would really be questioning Laird's tactics of going public with, a big whinge about Cam playing. Everyone that's commented tonight is dead set right. Cam's an SANFL player. He's likely to win the McGarry medal. It would have been sheer fortune for Centrals if they hadn't have played him. And I think questions have got to be asked to Roy Laird, about the wisdom of doing what he did.
Yeah, and that's what Pete was saying, and I think you're on the same path, Phoenix, that by carrying on like a pork chop and making it sound like this was a great, huge, unfair advantage, it really made it look like he was almost conceding beforehand, and I thought it was a very negative thought to put into his players' minds. No, just not smart at all.
And it really hit their supporter base there, because I'm sitting there, I've got Crows gear on, I've got Central supporters behind me making snide little comments of like, oh, I've never seen you out of Elizabeth, you don't even know the names of all your players. I felt like turning around and going, well, would you like me to actually say the names of our top-up players? Because I do know them. I also do know all of our names, and I'm sorry that I have been out to Elizabeth, but Unfortunately, I paid the money to go sit in your grandstand, so that's probably why you haven't seen me.
And the other thing there, Nikki, is the fact that for Cornsey and Co and other people to carry on about the Crows being in there and not winning grand finals, etc. If you want a serious competition, it has to be that all sides are in that competition trying to win the flag. And if that happens to be the Crows, so be it. Not that it's the end of the world if we don't get it, and not that it's the greatest thing in the world if we do get it. But by the same token, if you want your competition to be fair dinkum, it's got to be one that's open to everybody to win it. But on top of that, without the Crows in there, the money that is put in by the Crows is greedily gobbled up. It's a $50,000 contribution towards each club, and these clubs are broke.
Well, not only is it 50 grand to each club, but it's underpinning the whole SANFL operation. I mean, without the Crows and to a lesser degree Port Adelaide, he says contentiously, there is no SANFL. So, I mean, they had, what's the current CEO of SANFL's name? I forget his name. Had him on Parkinson, that's it. They had him on the radio the other day, and he was terribly disappointed, and I'd imagine that there would have been a fair exchange over the phone between him and Centrals during the week.
Well, he commented that it was only Centrals as a club that are making the fuss. And let's face it, Centrals would be happy if the whole thing was just the Centrals Football League. They've won, I don't know, what have they won, 42 out of the last 44 premierships. And, they just want to own the whole competition, really, don't they? And so the fact that there's some challenges now come to their, to a competition that they seem to feel as though they own, they're carrying on like spoilt children.
Honestly, what it comes down to me is that they really don't want to admit that they are just a feeder club to the AFL. That's what all these SANFL clubs are now. They kind of want that tradition and everything else, and I can understand that. But the AFL is the big business. They only get decent players coming from Victoria or those who have been cut from an AFL list, like Centrals do have one of those players this year. They're only doing it because they want to play in a competition that is up there, that is actually up against quality AFL reserves teams, and the aim is to get into the AFL. For pretty much the majority of those players, they want to play at the highest level, which is not the SANFL. They're youngsters. That's where their youngsters that they develop and they bring through are purely, most of those kids want to play in the AFL. The SANFL clubs need to understand they are just a feeder league now.
Yeah, and look, Nikki, what you said is dead set true, and that fight was lost 25 years ago. If there's still people in the SANFL system fighting for the old school tradition, and don't get me wrong, I love the SANFL, and I'm a staunch Sturt supporter, and if the Crows come up against Sturt in a final, then I want Sturt to win. But the point being that, if they don't reconfigure their business model, and if they don't reconfigure their KPIs and their expectations, then they're just going to go under, because they're going to be shooting at goals that aren't realistic. And Centrals have always been a bit of an outlier in that regard. They've always been a bit anti-establishment. But if they don't get with the program, there's not going to be a competition. So,
The program.
The program, exactly right, Danos.
I reckon that's probably enough. I reckon that's probably enough oxygen for Centrals and the SANFL. Do we want to, as we move towards the end of the show, obviously we need to spend some time on the huge game that's coming up on Saturday night. There is, according to various sites, it's just about a sellout. Although there's 8,000 tickets left, so I don't know who you want to believe, but it's going to be a big game. I reckon we'll get about 45,000 there, is my guess. How do we see the game panning out, everybody?
Well, from my point of view, I just see it, if we play the type of football that we've played all year, I think that would be good enough to win by somewhere between 6 and 10 goals. If we played a little bit extra, the margin could be higher than that. North Melbourne have got a very poor record at Adelaide Oval, or in fact in South Australia. And in fact, they've got a very poor record in their last. I think they've won 2 of their last 12 games, which is not a very, very good record going into finals. And if we were to lose this game, then it would have to be the most massive choke of all time. And I think after the one that we did perform against West Coast, I can't see that being repeated again this week. And I would say we'll get our game going, and I would expect us to give them a bit of a hiding.
Well, considering apparently only 700 of the tickets that were allocated to North Melbourne were taken up by North Melbourne members, I don't think they have a lot of faith either.
Well, how could you, Nikki? I mean, you've only won when your team's only won 2 of its last 12 games.
Yeah.
I asked a couple of North Melbourne friends who live over in Victoria if they were going to come over and come and see the game with me, and they very bluntly, flat out refused. They're not interested in coming over and seeing them being absolutely destroyed.
Which is a pity because there's those 4 players. That's their last game. Even if you think that's going to happen, shouldn't you still come and honour them?
Oh, yeah, and I reckon, look, I mean, what have they got to lose? I mean, they've won, 2 of their last 13 games. They will just come and swing for the stands. They've got absolutely nothing to lose whatsoever, and they'll be getting some players back. I reckon Jared Waite will probably come back, and there's another one that his name escapes me that should be back fit, but they were decimated by injuries about halfway through the year when they stopped having their run. And once they get, when they get all of their players back, they've got a reasonable team on the deck. So I don't know that we'll have it all of our own way.
I think we will. I don't think North have got anything left in the tank, to be perfectly honest with you, and I think they know it. What they did with their veterans towards the end of the season there, together with their current state of their list and a couple of key outs or key players coming back in, but probably underdone and perhaps still carrying injuries. Mate, I don't think they're going to trouble us at all.
No. Well, I hope not. I didn't think West Coast would trouble us either, but that didn't turn out so well. So I was kind of burnt. I was burnt a little bit by that, to be honest.
Yeah, but that I mean, our perception of that was probably overstating our own form, underestimating the effect of 2 6-day breaks, particularly after a showdown and whatnot, and travelling to Perth, and probably also factoring in West Coast's horrible away form. But when you look at all those factors together with, I mean, the players look flat that West Coast game, and if you look at the factors objectively, which a couple of weeks allows you to do, there's probably some fairly good reasons why we were flat that game, and I'd expect us to come out breathing fire this week.
I certainly hope so. How do we see the ins and outs? Obviously, Brodie Smith and Rory Sloane to come back in, and we have a doubt raised today over Cheney and Brown.
I mean, Brown's one we kind of knew about a little bit, that he was playing injured. It'd be interesting to see what we get from training. I think it's tomorrow that they have to get through. And if they get through that, and then the recovery, I think they'll be in because it's finals.
What's the Cheney injury?
Cheney he didn't take part in full training at the last session, and he did look a little bit limited as he was sort of jogging around the track. But by the same token, he hasn't really taken part in anything competitive since the last game that he played. And I would expect both he and Brown to come up, and that they will play. The big question is really, in my mind, is whether it's Henderson or whether it's McKay that goes out in place of Smith. You can't play both. One of them's going to have to go out. Now, Hendo's made a little bit of a bet in the sense that because he's got free agency up his sleeve, that if he's not selected, then he may well be leaving the club. So I don't know whether that's a blackmail attempt to try and get a game or whatever.
No.
But
he's got a 12-game trigger in his contract, Macca, that he hasn't obviously triggered. So that was the comment, that basically because he hasn't triggered his extension, unless he gets games, he's likely to look elsewhere. So That's what that all is about. I mean, he is up for free agency or whatever. I don't think it's as cut and dried as that. I think we don't lose a hell of a lot if they give Lukey Brown a rest. And if you look at the matchups, North Melbourne are quite a tall forward unit, with just a couple of smalls. I'd be more disappointed if Chaney dropped out, but I wouldn't actually mind betting that if Brown isn't 100%, that they might drop him out and leave Henderson in the team and bring in Smith, and maybe still drop McKay for Seedsman if they want to go that way, although I doubt it. But I reckon that they might actually leave Henderson in and leave Brown out if he's not 100%.
Henderson actually did play well against West Coast.
He was very close to our best player. He was certainly in our best three players, and I mean, there is a case for him to stay, but it's not that he and McKay, they don't play identical games, and they're not totally interchangeable, they're partially interchangeable. So it does have a slight effect on our game.
Well, Henderson gives us more output on the outside because he delivers. D-Mac tends to be a link in the chain, whereas Henderson can get on the end of a chain and really hurt the opposition. The problem with the matchups down back is that if we don't have Brown, it means that it makes Lairdy more accountable. And whenever Laird's ability to create and link and intercept is reduced because he's got to actually be accountable for a man, and I'm thinking maybe Lindsay Thomas or someone like that, it reduces our rebound from back 50. So whoever, if Brownie doesn't come up, whoever comes in for Brown needs to be someone that can actually be accountable for a Lindsay Thomas, so that Lairdy can still play that role.
So who do you think would be the person to take that role if Brownie doesn't play?
Well, do you put Cheney? If Cheney is in okay nick, if he's gotten over his little niggle, we know he is actually quick. You could put him on Thomas.
Then who do you put on Zeeble or Cunnington who drift forward when they go forward? Then
that would be Laird or Smith.
Yeah, but sometimes they've got three tools up there as well.
Well, they won't have three tools.
Well,
they could.
They can. They could have at one time.
Brown,
Petrie,
and one of Dore or Waite.
Well, I don't think they'll play Petrie, to be honest.
No, it's been declared that he will be playing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, then you could put anybody on him because of the way Petrie's playing at the moment, he's almost a non-event.
Okay, Nicky, you're on.
Just let Lever drift off him.
My one position for the game that I would like us to see do the right thing that we did not do against West Coast, and blind Freddie could see before the West Coast game that you had to man up Gaff and you just couldn't leave him standing in the centre on his own. But we did. And his man's had 41 touches and carved us up. And there's only one player in the North Melbourne side that's capable of doing that, because he is a little bit of silk when he's really going, and that's Daniel Wells. And the one player that we cannot afford not to stand on the centre bounces this week is Daniel Wells, because he is a beautiful user of the ball.
Well, I agree with you, Macca. We need to actually give some respect to North Melbourne, I think, and I'm with some of the guys on the chatter there with Vardy Magic and Balloose just saying that, do we just start talking about the GWS game, or, we really do have to think about the fact that there's a game of footy on Saturday night, and I think that they will give us more of a challenge than what we're expecting. And I think that if we don't, we need to bring a lot more effort than we did. That was, it was an appalling effort against West Coast. And I know there were some reasons behind that, but I think it'll be a little bit closer. Should we have some final tips before we have a look at some of the other sides in the final eight over the weekend? I think that we'll get across the line, but I wouldn't think it'd be any more than about somewhere between 15 to 25 points.
Well, I'm much more bullish on the game than that. If we line up our best game versus their best game, and that's what I'm assuming will happen, being a final, you'd hope that we would bring our best game this time. And if we do that, I will say... I'll go for 60 points.
60 points. Their best game 2 weeks ago ran Sydney to 8 points.
Well, that's my tip.
I like the cut of your jib, Macca.
What do you reckon, Nikki?
I reckon it would be up around the 40, 45 point mark, maybe.
I'm gonna go with Shorty and say Crows by 35.
Yeah, I'm going a solid 10-goal win as well, Macca. I don't think I don't think they've got much left in the tank, and I think we're going to come out breathing fire.
I thought I must have been going insane there for a while, but
No, well, you are, but that wasn't proof of it.
I hope you're right.
Mind you, last time we were all this confident about a game, we ended up losing by 5 goals to West Coast.
Yeah, this is what worries me. All right, let's have a quick look at the other teams across the weekend. I've done a series of articles in Crows Fan Central just on the contenders, and this is, as I see it, how it ends up. I see it ending up that the Western Bulldogs and North drop out in the first week. I think that GWS and Hawthorn go out in straight sets. I think that Adelaide and Sydney go out in the prelim final, and I think the grand final is Geelong v West Coast. And I have tipped West Coast for the flag. So chew that up amongst yourselves, folks. That's as I've called it.
So who's Sydney up against in the prelim?
I've gone up against West Coast in the prelim.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sydney's winning that. At the MCG, that's Sydney, for my mind.
In a prelim final? It'll be at the SCG, wouldn't it?
It'll be at the SCG.
Oh, well, yeah, even better.
they're playing at ANZ Stadium this week.
That's only because it's both Sydney sides. If it's just the Sydney Swans, they'll play it at the SCG.
Gotcha, yeah, I see. But no, I think that I'll stick by with what I've always thought, that the two best teams are probably, on paper, anyhow, Sydney and Geelong, and I think that's where the grand final will be played, between those two.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Geelong one of the best two teams on paper, Macca, to be honest with you. I think they've had a soft draw. They've had some good wins, but they've had some horrible losses as well. And to be perfectly frank with you, I think the three teams that you would put down as the best three teams in the final eight would be us, Sydney and West Coast on form.
Yep.
You could possibly make a case for GWS as well. Certainly the statistics in that article that you put up yesterday, Pete, their statistics are extremely impressive. Get another season into those lads and they'll be nigh on unstoppable. But as it stands this year, I think it's out of West Coast, us and Sydney. I don't think North have got a shot to fire. I don't think the Bulldogs have got a shot to fire, although I think they'll be gallant.
Not with their injuries.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I think it's just a bridge too far for the Bullies this year. They'll play with heart. GWS, I think, will get swallowed up by the pressure in the end. West Coast,
inexperience.
Yeah, I think so, Danos. I think, our game, the game they played against us this year was the biggest crowd they've ever played against. And as you rightly pointed out, Pete, they'll be up against Sydney in the first final at the ANZ Stadium, where they've never played, where the crowd is going to be bigger again. So I can't see them getting over Sydney in the first week. And I think the pressure will get to them against us should we get through in the second week. So I don't think Hawthorn are going to make it. I think Geelong will get to a prelim, but I can actually see the grand final being between us and Sydney.
I actually like Damp Squib. He said that anyone but Hawks, Geelong, Sydney, GWS, Bulldogs, West Coast, North, and he's happy. I kind of agree with that.
Don't go with Damp Squid on anything. He's been a bloody terror on the chat all bloody season. He's lucky to still be on there, and I'm certainly not taking any notice of him at all.
I like that one, though. That one was good.
Yeah, and just going back to the West Coast versus Geelong situation, I think my comment was based on the fact that Geelong they have lost some strange games this year against the lesser teams, but their record against the teams that are actually in the eight has been exceptionally good. West Coast are currently the form team of the competition, but a lot of their games have been against teams that have been outside the eight. So, I may be underestimating West Coast. I don't know.
Have Geelong still got Henderson out? He's still out, isn't he? He's out for the season, isn't he, or for the next couple?
I think he's out, yeah.
Yeah, Henderson out actually messes up their game structure a little bit. I think that's actually a bit of a blow for them. I don't know. They rely a lot on their two guns in the midfield and a solid structure relying on their tools in defence. But I think they'll get found out in finals.
I hope so. I genuinely hope so. But I would like to be wrong.
See, even though they've beaten Hawthorn twice this year, finals are a very different matter. And just the history between those two, I think Hawthorn, even though we know they're not travelling that well, they're up against the old enemy in a way. They got beaten twice. I don't think they're going to let that slip against.
Well, it'll certainly be an interesting weekend. The first weekend of finals, I think, is always the most interesting weekend with the 4 games, and it sets up the final series for the fortnight to come. So, very much looking forward to those games. And Nikki, are we going to slip in a very, very quick cock-wombling None of the Week award?
That was the game. Well, we've actually mentioned a couple of the good nominations that are up for this week, because you've got Rory Laird being Roy Laird and hating anything to do with the AFL. You've got Ticketek, who just absolutely ballsed up the ticket availability because best seats were not available on the first day. They were actually available days later. You've got the Richmond Numpties, but they're just Richmond, so I think we can just go, they're always going to make us laugh. And then there was, of course, Port Adelaide, who put up a post on their official Facebook page telling their supporters not to support the Crows in the finals. Really? You had to go and do that? You're still concerned about us?
That's little brother stuff, isn't it?
Oh, well and truly.
Just a bit silly, really. A bit small-minded, really.
And then there's Gil McLaughlin regarding the bye and apparently all the people that he's talked to who thinks the bye's fabulous. So who's your...
Did you mention the All-Australian selectors?
Oh, yes, and the All-Australian selectors for not picking Lairdy and Jenkins.
I think standing out there buying himself.
Oh, Pete's gone under.
Yep.
Pete, get out from under the pillow.
As an absolute, standing by himself as a beacon of cock-wombling numbness has to be Roy Laird.
I thought you were going to say bomb again.
No, I'm happy to give it to Roy Laird. I thought that he was pathetic, and there is a fair bit in it that he may have spooked his side or to a loss well before they ran out on the ground.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Blackhorse has also pointed out that Gil on the couch on Monday night said that the draft helps teams fix it, because like Melbourne in 3 years and they've fixed they're going to play finals. That's nice. They didn't this year. And St Kilda, well, I hate to tell you, Gil, it wasn't 3. It was a lot more than that.
Well, and he still fined us for bloody Melbourne tanking.
Yeah. But I agree. I think Roy Laird, he gets to be the first little nomination that's outside the AFL, but geez, it was a Luke Beveridge of the highest calibre.
Winner, cock-wombling dinner, I think. All right, well, look, that brings us towards the end of the show. I think, though, that just before we go, a couple of things I just wanted to put out there. I think all of us would join together and pay tribute to our former skipper and 200-game player, Nathan Van Berlo, who has been a wonderful servant of the club and a magnificent captain, and he called his retirement this week. So to Nathan, congratulations, and I'm sure he will have he's a very intelligent man and a great leader. He'll have a great career after football in whatever he chooses to do. So congratulations on a fabulous career. Well done.
Here, Pete, and definitely bring up as many little Nathan Van Berlos to play for the Crows in the future as he possibly can.
That would be fantastic. Yeah. 2 late rumours before we go. A lot of whispers around Mitch Grigg going to Carlton, being a done deal, and also I think there was another little whisper that if Scott Thompson doesn't take up that Melbourne position, that may well go to Nick Dal Santo. So anyway, a couple of little whispers there to finish the show. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Rory Laird as much as we enjoyed doing it. And to all of the panel tonight, thanks so much for your participation and all of your input.
Thanks, mate.
I just hope that VB does get a premiership in the SANFL because he's deserved it.
Oh, bloody oath.
Yeah, he's a great man. All right, that's the Crowcast for Tuesday Night Live this week, and don't forget to listen out on Thursday night for a preview of the elimination final with Scoppers and also the Rat on Sunday night.
Night, guys.
See ya.
Don't shout, Macca.